Okay, colleagues, I'm going to call this meeting to order, and I'm going to ask that we begin by just observing a moment of silence so that council staff and members of the public can quietly reflect on our duty to the community that we are trying to serve. Thank you very much. Members of the public, staff, presenters, and members of council, please be advised that meetings are broadcast and recorded and made available on the internet. I'd ask any of the council members if there is a declaration of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof. Let it show that nobody indicated that there was. Colleagues, we've all received our package. We'll go into our agenda. The first item is our minutes for our April 28th meeting. Anybody want to move that?
I'll move that.
Donna moved, Jerry seconded. Any questions or comments? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Like say, great, that is carried. Any discussion? Not hearing any discussion. We will go to deputations, which there were none registered, so we have no deputations tonight. We did put out an appeal for questions, and I will ask the clerk if anybody submitted any questions by 4:30 this afternoon.
No questions were submitted.
Okay, thank you. So we will then move on to our municipal officers and staff reports for direction. And the first report will come from Lane, and that is on the lake-filled water and sewer budget. And Lane, if you could get close to the microphone, because when you were talking earlier, you were a little bit muffled.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The report before council provides the proposed budget for Department 30, which is lake-filled sewer, and Department 31, which is lake-filled water. It is very similar to other years, what council has seen in terms of format and attachments. The budget includes typical expenses related to PW Utilities management and operating costs of the system. There's also a number of smaller capital investments that are outlined in the attachments, and there are various capital worksheets and photos. Council will recall the 2020 rates have actually been in place since January, but based on the existing rates in place at this juncture, our typical annual hydro savings that we're experiencing based on some of our investments we've made in the system, the status of our respective accumulated revenue for both the utilities, staff are not recommending any change in rates at this time. We will be reporting back in the future on a new 6-year water financial plan, and that's a requirement of some legislation. We'll be bringing that in later in the year, and that's as part of our municipal drinking water license. The document's been circulated to council since last week, so I'll just turn that back to council, and if there's any questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
Thank you, Lane. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
I just want to say that I think it's great that we're holding the line, especially during this economic, the pandemic period. People are going to be struggling as it is. So it's nice to see that we're holding the line at the current time.
Thank you, Anita. Any other comments? Sherry?
Move the report.
Jerry moves. Anybody want a second? Jerry is seconded. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you, Lane. And you're up again for the second item. This, colleagues will recall, we passed on a notice of motion a number of measures which staff is going to be reporting back at the end of May. However, on one item, on the property tax interest relief, staff have come forward with their report at this time. So Lane, if you want to go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we are definitely developing a comprehensive strategy report to come back for council deliberations later in the month. but this report specifically addresses the interest relief. We just feel that it's better that this come forward earlier to allow sufficient time to clearly provide the interest relief message to the community. With the messaging out there in advance to support families' budgets and essentially provide that relief for an additional 60 days and maybe lessen the anxiety that some folks in the community are feeling. With the approval of the recommendation, staff, of course, could then proceed to promote the extension of their interest relief program using our various advertising, social media, e-newsletter, and the website. So the extension of the grace period, which council had previously put in place till June, would actually further extend that no interest penalty charge for July and August, and also for non-payment of the August tax installment. So essentially, June, July, and August would be interest-free, and then all legislative changes would commence on September the 1st. That's before council this evening.
Questions, colleague? Donna? You're muted.
Oh, okay. Through you to Lane. Lane, if people indicated to you that they wanted the PP, whatever it was, to continue, or if they wanted to continue to pay their taxes by check, do they have to do anything, or can they just carry right on? You'll continue taking the money out of the bank and we'll continue writing you checks?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we did have an extensive outreach through a direct mailer to everybody that was on PAP or had post-dated checks on file. We did have a good response from some folks that did want to pay despite the relief. But yeah, anybody who has indicated that they were going to continue to pay, they don't need to do anything. Folks that we had directly advised, any of the pre-authorized payment processes will commence again in June. That will take place. This is just with respect to interest relief. So if folks don't have the ability to pay or just want a little bit of additional time to pay, then there won't be any interest charges until September the 1st.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Donna, were you done?
Yep.
Okay, Sherry?
Thank you, through you. Just want to make sure with the extension that we are providing that we're okay with regards to the other payments that we have to make to the other levels of government.
Yes, so with respect to the education levies, the provincial government has actually approved legislation that would allow us to defer our June payment till September, our September payment until December, and then the other December payment would be due in December. So it is my intent to actually use that relief that the provincial government has put in place. With respect to the ORCA levy, given the size of it and their payment structure, I think we'll be able to meet the ORCA levy deadline, so that won't be an issue. With respect to the county, I'm in discussions with the county and some of the local treasurers, and I do believe that there's going to be an additional report come back to county council in June, and they are looking at the possibility of providing some relief on the levy payments for June and September, but that will be coming forward before county council.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Jerry, you wanted to make comment?
Yes, thank you. Through you to Lane. As much as we're down in lost revenue, if you will, some of our costs aren't there either. So I'm wondering if you can maybe elaborate on where we stand as far as costs go. Say payroll costs should be down, electricity costs should be down throughout the township, paper supplies should be down from janitorial to actual paper being used. Or are we kicking back to staff for any of that, for any of the supplies they're using at home, or such, or giving a per diem for electricity being used, say, for computers? because with that many people working in the office, obviously the computers do draw, and again, we should have some savings there. So I don't know where we stand with that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I may be able to quantify that a little bit more at the end of May. Our working at home policy is very clear that we provide the connection and the devices if possible, but there's no further compensation to any of the staff or any of that. For the majority, there's not a lot of paper products being used because things are saved as PDFs, and anything that needs to be printed is printed here in the office for sure. And definitely when you're working from home, despite some of the hours that some of the folks are in, there's no overtime approved during that time. So we definitely aren't incurring any additional costs there. There will be some savings with respect to the Parks and Rec department because of some of the work there and the amount of staff that they may be employing at this point. Of course, they're not. But also there's going to be some lost revenues as well. So the net picture overall, we hope to report a little bit closer to the end of May, but that will be something that's almost reported on more at the end of the second quarter report, I think, and before we really start to see the impacts of some of that.
All right, thank you very much.
Anybody else? Any other comments? I need a mover and a seconder. Donna and Anita. Donna moved, Anita second. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, next report is on a land purchase on Bishop Street. Rick, you're up.
Hello. Oh,
Hi,
can you
Rick.
hear me now?
Can hear you now.
Okay, very good. Yeah, there's a section at the east end of Bishop Street that we use for a turnaround that was never owned by the township. I'm recommending that to purchase this land from Joe Bach to add to our road network and to make improvements to the turnaround there. And that's pretty well all I had other than the report. Was there any questions on that?
Colleagues, any questions? I don't see anything. Rick, I take it from the report that everything was amicable and it was just a straightforward transaction. The landowner was quite comfortable.
Yeah, he is now. We've been in talks for quite a while over it, and yeah, we're all in agreement now.
Sounds good. Sherry, you're moving. And Anita, you're seconding. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. And we will then go on to Rob on the interim strategy for public meeting protocol. Rob?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so the report's before council to request your approval to move forward with a change in how we are currently managing Planning Act applications. So the report outlines the fact that, of course, since the emergency was declared, we haven't been accepting Planning Act applications. We've been reviewing them and helping people with their potential submissions, but we haven't been accepting applications for zoning bylaw amendments or minor variances. So with the recent passage of Bill 189, which I speak to in the report, we've had an opportunity to rethink what we might be able to do to help move along at least some aspects of our Planning Act application procedures. So we took a close look at some of the issues that are presented by not being in a position to hold public meetings the way that the Act suggests they should be held, and also not being in a position to provide people with access to the township office so they could review any of the supporting documents that were submitted with any particular application. And I concluded that essentially we could consider moving forward with a change in how we provide notice as it relates to minor variances and meet essentially the intent of the Act in this context. But to do so for zoning bylaw amendments, I think would be a bit of a stretch. So the recommendation before council is that we begin accepting minor variance applications subject to a change in the protocol that's spoken to in the report. Essentially, we would give people 5 additional days to provide input. We would provide actually deliver notices to people who have PO boxes, because we're hearing that there are some people who aren't going to the post office very frequently, so we'd want to make sure that they heard from us in time. And in addition, we would add certain aspects to the actual notice, advising people, of course, that the meetings would be held electronically, that if they wanted to participate, that there's a process that they'd have to follow through the clerk. And we would encourage people to provide their comments ahead of any public meeting. So, and I feel comfortable doing that because typically a minor variance application is supported by a detailed drawing that we could include with the notice. So they wouldn't have to come in and actually see any other supporting documents, of course, and that's not the case for zoning bylaw amendments. So, yeah, so essentially the recommendation before council is that that we move forward with accepting minor variance applications subject to the protocol that's spoken to in the report.
Thank you, Rob. Colleagues, comments? Sherry?
Thank you, through you. Thanks, Rob, for the report. I think it's good to give some additional time. And I think it's good that we start working with these minor variance applications, because otherwise we're going to have a big backlog we're going to have to deal with down the road. So I'm in favor of this. I have a question. There was a email that just came out from AMO, and it mentions permit applications and inspections to continue, but it says in this thing from AMO, municipal building officials must continue to review permit applications and conduct inspections for all construction projects. Has that changed, or is it just more of the same? I find sometimes these things that come out from AMO and the province are a bit convoluted and it's hard to follow.
Rob, I had the same question. That looks like it's a change made as of May the 11th, and it also speaks to something called an interim building permit, which I had never known existed. So maybe you could just fill us in.
Yeah, so I actually, Janice was kind enough to alert me to the fact that AMO had provided that particular piece of information. It came completely unbeknownst to me, and I learned about it about half an hour ago. So I took a quick look at, because embedded in the AMO email was a link to the legislation. So I've taken a quick look at it. It is a change from what had been the norm, well, the new normal. Because the timeframes had, you know, there's a series of timeframes that we have to meet to complete reviews and a few other things. They had been suspended, but I think part of this change in the Building Code Act is that we can't delay based on the fact that the office is closed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So yeah, there are some changes. I'm still digesting them. I don't think they'll be too monumental in the way that we've been proceeding. We are reviewing applications, and we've got a number of them that are pending approval, just subject to some more flexibility in the essential business order. And again, if the intent of this recent change is to issue permits regardless of whether or not they're consistent with the essential business order, we'll carry on doing that. So I don't think it'll be a monumental change, but I do have to digest that. But thanks for the question.
Well, and in fairness, Rob, you're being inundated with changes every day. So, but if you could, when you get a chance to go through it, if you could just let council members know what your conclusion is after you've had a reasonable chance to take a look at it, we'd appreciate that. Donna, you have a question? Go ahead.
Okay, through you to Rob. So Rob, I take it that you have a number of variances in the queue now. And when you get through those, if we're still in this type of situation, how will you inform the public that we are taking minor variances again?
Yeah, so subject to council's approval with what I've proposed, I think we would certainly update our website I'm sure Ange would help with any rollout from a social media perspective, just to get the word out that things have changed as it relates to accepting minor variances. Of course, I've spoken to a number of people who are kind of waiting for this, and I'll let them know personally that we're accepting them as well. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Jerry or Anita, do you have any comments? No? Rob, I just had a question. So we're scheduled for our next Committee of Adjustment meeting to be in 2 weeks from today. Are you I guess based on the notice that you want to give, we're not likely to be in a position 2 weeks from today to do it, but I wonder if it's possible for us to move our Committee of Adjustment meeting for June to have one in the first meeting, so that we can get to deal with these as quickly as we can. Because if we don't do that, we're looking at the first of these at the end of June. So unless I'm mistaken, I don't think you have enough time to get any of them in front of us for the last meeting in May. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, the best we could do would be the first meeting in June on the would that be the 9th? Yeah.
Are colleagues comfortable, and I should ask the chair clearly if she's comfortable in doing a Committee of Adjustment meeting in the first, attached to the first council meeting of June, as opposed to waiting? We might actually do two. We could do one at the first meeting of June, and then we could do a second one and do a bit of catch up. Sherry, I don't know how you feel about that as chair, whether you'd be comfortable with that.
I'm amenable to doing one or two, whatever we need to do to get through it.
Okay, so Donna, yep. Go ahead.
Okay, through you, would we have to change our procedural bylaw to do that, to do two of those?
I will ask the clerk. Madam Clerk. Need to get closer to the mic, Ange.
Sorry, we would just have you establish the meeting through a resolution of council. So actually, maybe under new business, we'll talk about our June meetings, because originally we were going to have our regular meeting on June the 2nd to accommodate the AMCTO conference. It's actually been canceled. So we could look at rescheduling the council meeting in June from the 2nd to the 9th. But we could talk about that under new business.
Okay, that's what we'll do. So let's just make this clean then. Does anybody else have any comments on the interim strategy? If not, I need a mover and a seconder. So Donna moved, Anita second. All those in favor? That's carried. Okay, we are now on the, sorry about that, just dropped something. We now are on the consent items. Does anybody have any items they would like pulled? Not seeing any. Then that takes us right through sections 5, 6, 7, and 8. I will need a motion to accept all of those if nobody wants anything pulled. Anita would move. I need a seconder. Jerry second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Okay. So now we will go to council portfolios. I don't know if folks have had a chance to prepare anything, but does anybody just stick your hand up if you'd like to make a report? Sherry, and then I'll call on Anita second.
Thank you very much, through you. Just wanted to mention that the center page in the Herald is going to come out this week on Thursday, and it's advertising all the Selwyn businesses that are open and with some restrictions because of the COVID. And I want to thank staff, and if staff can pass on a thank you to the chamber for pulling it all together. It's I find it to be very impressive, the number of Selwyn businesses that are in this ad. and they're just the ones that are open. There are a bunch that are missing because it is closed. They can't open yet because of the province edicts. I know that Terry plans to put on his website that particular page that anybody can access after the fact. I think it would be a good idea for the township to do the same thing. And I'm hoping that it is a page that people will pull out and hold on to for future reference. There's a couple of businesses that were given the opportunity to open from the province, garden centers, and Griffin's took the approach, rather than opening it up wide, they kept with their curbside, but they are going to open up fully this weekend, and there's a bunch of protocols that people are going to have to follow when they go shopping there. I see that the Home Hardware in Lakefield, although you can go in the store, there are still people opting to line up outside and have curbside pickup. And I would imagine we're going to see a combination of all of that kind of thing when things finally open up. I think there are people that are still feeling very wary of being out in public and being in contact with other people. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all rolls out. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Anita, you had a comment?
Yeah, I was just with regards to sustainability, and Sherry touched on it a little bit, but one of the really amazing things that's sort of been coming to the forefront and out of the woodwork is the really creative and innovative ideas. Locally, we have Jack Millage, a 93-year-old Lakeville resident, making face shield bands on his 3D printer. We've got hand sanitizer being made by local distilleries. We talked about the curbside pickup and delivery by local businesses. The local musicians visiting retirement homes. Melissa Payne was one. She visited Extendicare Lakefield. And even this Zoom is an example of sustainability. So I say thank goodness for technology. I don't know, Sherry, you mentioned the Lakeville Farmers Market is opening up after the long weekend with really specific protocols in place. You can check out their Facebook page. I also want to give a big shout out to the teachers and all the students who have been doing online learning, and especially the parents who have guided and assisted them through the process. My oldest daughter has had to do this with her 3 children at home. I asked her how it was going, and she said actually it's going really, really well. The kids are getting a little bit fed up with not being able to hang out with their friends and stuff. And I think going forward, we really need to adopt the mantra, or really embrace the mantra of buy local. With all these stores and the different businesses that are being featured in the Herald ad spread, I think locally we are doing a great job. And like I said, I think we really need to buy local, buy Canadian as much as possible. And with regards to seniors, Lakefield Legion and many other service organizations have been closed since the regulations were put in place, and they will need our encouragement and support and messaging when the restrictions are relaxed and lifted. So many of our seniors have been missing their regular social interactions, and especially interaction with their loved ones during this difficult time. So we really need to keep our seniors in mind. And just as a personal note, that was the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Holland, May 5th, and also the 75th anniversary of Victory in Europe Day on May 8th, I believe it was. So if you have a chance to drive by the Lakefield Cenotaph and the Lakefield Legion, the Liberation tulips, beautiful orange tulips, should be blooming soon if they're not blooming already.
If we can dust the snow off of them. Donna?
Disappeared for about 5 minutes. Did you notice that I was gone?
I didn't notice that you were gone. I thought you were there.
I lifted up my laptop to get my notes and I disappeared.
Ah.
Anyway, I'll just update you on, I assume we're on our
portfolio. Yeah.
Yes. So the library board have had 2 Zoom meetings, one whole meeting where we discussed the strat plan, and we're now preparing for next steps. And we may have a Zoom meeting to do that. The volunteer dinner has been canceled for the whole year. And there's a subcommittee of 3 people, myself, Kathy, and Sarah. And what we've decided to do upon board approval at our next meeting is to give 161 volunteers a $20 gift card from restaurants in all 3 parts of the municipality. And that adds up to pretty much what we would spend to do a dinner. And then we haven't quite decided on how we would distribute them, if we would be able to hand deliver some and maybe mail some others. So that's still not totally flushed out. So that's the library. We had a telephone joint police services board meeting last week, and I brought the black cat up because I hadn't heard anything, and of course we hadn't had meetings. So the staff sergeant indicated that he would be calling all CAOs to ensure that they still had the money to participate in the joint purchase. And I know that Janice has received a call, and they're still, from the last thing I heard, trying to work out some of the details. And the company does have enough black cats to fulfill our order as long as all the municipalities are still on board. So hopefully that happens. And then the transportation, of course, has been delayed. It was supposed to start in May, the link. Angie indicates that she's having another meeting, I think tomorrow. They're hoping to do a soft launch in the summer, which would just be free rides and testing out the stops that they're proposing. And then hopefully they'll be able to start up again, or start up in the fall, depending on what's happening with the virus. That's all mine.
Thank you, Donna. Jerry?
Yeah, I haven't. Everything's been going good, depending on the by the judge of the emails I've been getting. The roads, everybody's happy with that. Those who have been swept, the ones on the tail end, of course, never happy. But that rotation goes. Park and Rec. I'd be interested to see what the savings were when we shut down the rinks a couple of weeks early this year. So they're busy doing their normal spring stuff, a lot of cleanup and things like that. But I want to touch on something Anita said earlier there about local businesses. Anita referenced as well there about the United Way, or Sherry did, one or the other, about the United Way. And I was dropping off laptops there. And as much as you got to support local business, you've also got to support those in isolation right now. And these laptops that I delivered, 70 of them from Siemens, they're going to people who don't have a laptop. So now they can expand the outside world. The other thing I want to stress on that too, and unfortunately I didn't get this quote into the paper because I didn't want to talk to me, and I want to talk to Big Jim. Amazon wasn't there to deliver them. A local guy was, and the same with, you see, Amazon's not sponsoring your team, but the local restaurants are. So we really got to hammer that home, I think, as a township, as a community, that again, Jesse's is jam-packed over there. People are supporting that because they want them there. You don't go to that place, they're not going to be there again. You're going, geez, I wish he was there, he had good food. So I think we got to make sure that we're hammering that home all amongst us, through wherever we're talking about that buy local. It is so important. I mean, being in a local business here right now in Peterborough, I can tell you horror stories. It's just awful. And Andy and I have had numerous conversations, especially with his banking background. It's just ridiculous, some of the stuff I'm hearing out there and in talking to these guys. And there's going to be a lot of guys who don't make it. So I might hold off on gift cards, but dollars in the door, I would highly recommend it, and I'd like to see that. That's it for me.
Thank you, Jerry. I just going to do a bit of a report here from the government relations perspective. So with the emergency, there are a number of new forums that have been created that really result in a weekly meeting. And so the county, as you know, has also declared a state of emergency. So there is at least one, sometimes two county control meetings each week. I participate in that in my role as the deputy warden. It provides an opportunity to learn and to understand many of the things that the county is doing. As colleagues are aware, we also have a township control meeting that happens on a weekly basis. Sherry attends that as my alternate, and the minutes from those are being circulated to the rest of council, and so that's taking place on a weekly basis. Peterborough Public Health holds a weekly meeting on Wednesday at noon with media to provide an update on public health. I participate in that on most days. At the request of the warden, I now sit on the city county recovery strategy, which meets weekly. You may recall that the city and the county, led by PCAD, are putting together a local recovery strategy for business. So the first meeting was last week. We'll have another meeting this week, and we're meeting weekly going forward. The MPP holds a weekly meeting with the mayors from across his constituency. And so we normally have that meeting in the evening, where we have an opportunity for him to update us on what is taking place at a provincial level and to have a discussion about those changes. The MP also has a meeting similar to that. They actually work together to make sure that they don't overlap each other, and they attend each other's meetings. They attend each other's meetings so that they can give feedback back and forth. Colleagues hopefully have noticed that I am providing a weekly video report that the township puts out on its social media platforms. I'm sure everybody has gotten to know my cupboard doors. We do have a Selwyn backdrop, which we're going to employ now. I tried it one time and it sort of worked. I think I've got it located. Whoever bought it, it's 6 feet high by 8 feet wide. So we're certainly, wherever we set that up, it will certainly let folks know that Selwyn Township is there. There is I wanted to mention that as businesses reopen, there are right now, at last count, I think there are 80, right now there's something like 82 separate public health recommendations about what you need to do in order to operate safely. Now, they don't all apply to every business because every business is a little different, but I think it's important for the public to understand all of businesses, and they're working hard because they really, the folks that I've dealt with really want to make sure that they get it done right, but there are a number of guidelines for operating. Some of them we're pretty familiar with in terms of social distancing, etc., but the extent to which you have to clean, and there's a whole set of them. So I just thought that would be important for people to know. Next week, the Lake Alliance, which is a group of cottage associations, are going to be meeting virtually, and the medical officer of health will be attending that, and we'll have an opportunity to answer questions from several of the cottage associations who will be attending that. So that's taking place as well. So just a few of the sort of intergovernmental things that I'm doing. And I got to thank Sherry. She's doing the OPP meetings for me to try to so that we spread some of this around. I'm very appreciative of that, Sherry, as well as sitting on our control group. And I also want to take a moment to thank all of council for all of your support. I've had a chance, and I do take the chance to talk to you all every week, a couple times a week if I can manage. The advice that you're providing is really appreciated. Your support is really appreciated. I know you're all fielding calls and inquiries from our ratepayers, and so the fact that that is being shared by all of you is a big help. I also want to take a moment to thank the staff as well, who are working under some difficult circumstances for all the work that they're doing, as well as answering the inquiries for people. It's been 8 weeks now, and folks are becoming exhausted, if I can put it that way, with some of it, but we will come out the other side. And I just want to, again, thank all of the council and all of the staff for all of their hard work. And finally, I want to thank all of our ratepayers who are working really diligently. We've managed to flatten the curve in Ontario, and in our particular region, people have been diligent in terms of social distancing and not meeting in groups of more than 5, hand hygiene, and all of those important things. So the success that we're having is because everybody's individual action is resulting in a collective outcome. And so I just wanted to take an opportunity to thank everybody for what you're doing. And that includes the businesses in our community, the businessmen and women who are working under trying circumstances. And for some of our essential businesses, we've had those have stayed open the whole time, and the employees that have gone in there and have taken worked hard to make sure that we're able to continue to buy our food and go to our drugstore and all of the other things that we need as a community. So to everybody, a great thank you. So having said that, we will then move on to unfinished other and new business. And so, Madam, Anita, go ahead.
Oh, Donna has a question. Donna,
you're sitting at our chair. I didn't see it. Go ahead.
Just a couple of questions. One to you, Mr. Mayor. When the Peterborough Public Health and yourself meet with the cottagers, are you preparing an answer or a discussion on boat launch openings? Because I've been bombarded this week with requests to reopen the boat launches.
The boat launch issue isn't really a public health issue. That's a provincial issue. It's under. We've taken that action under an order to close outdoor recreational amenities. As the province is making a number of changes, they've made some this past weekend. They're scheduled to make more on Thursday. I suspect as we see those changes, they're usually accompanied with guidelines, which would be public health guidelines. So if you were to say you can, for instance, you are allowed to enter into businesses that you weren't able to enter into before, those
You're muted.
Okay,
you were muted for part of that.
Okay, I don't know why that happened. But what I was saying is, whenever the province moves to relax its regulations, it usually that relaxation of the regulation is accompanied with guidelines that are public health guidelines. They come out of the advice of the Medical Officer of Health of Ontario. That's how it does. But Roseanne is going to attend that, and she'll answer any question that anybody puts to her. It's a Zoom meeting. I should make that point. It's a virtual meeting. It isn't an in-person meeting.
Okay. I had one more question. One more?
Sure. Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
To Jerry. Jerry? Somebody unmute him? Unmute Jerry.
I'm listening.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. When I was talking about purchasing gift cards at restaurants, you said hold off on the gift cards, dollars at the door. Well, gift cards really are in the door.
Carry on. Go ahead.
We're not going to be doing it until like about the second week in June, and hopefully we have a list of all the local restaurants, and if they're closed now, we'll find a way to get a hold of the owners and purchase the gift cards.
Yeah, so when I said that, yeah, I didn't necessarily mean out here, more maybe in the city, being Peterborough. You just got to be careful because who's going to make it and who isn't going to make it. That's the unfortunate reality of it, where, you know, dollars in the door are a little bit better than throwing a gift card at some place, let's say, that just may not make it, and then try to get that money down the road, right? I think out here you're safe, but I was just using that as a just be careful.
Okay, but that's really the only way we can do it, and they're not going to be even be getting the gift cards until the end of June by the time we get it all coordinated. So
yeah, and however you run it, that's your choice. So I'm just was speaking in generalities.
yeah. Well, I think we'll be okay. I think we'll know who's open. Hopefully we'll know who's open by
Yes.
who's going to make it.
Good. Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions on that? Not seeing any, we will move on to other new and unfinished business. And Angie, did you want to suggest a resolution to establish first that we change our June 2nd meeting to June 9th, and that we also add an additional committee of adjustment to happen on June 9th?
Yeah, so we would need a resolution to cancel the June 2nd regular council meeting. We also have that day, we have a special council meeting scheduled. That was scheduled to review the building and planning review process. So because that project is a little bit delayed, we would cancel that meeting too. And then we would reschedule the regular meeting to June the 9th and include committee of adjustment. And then, of course, our June 23rd meeting is already scheduled as a regular meeting along with committee of adjustment. So we would proceed with that. That way we could maybe split the applications up over a couple of meetings in June. So canceling June 2nd special meeting at 3:30, regular meeting at 5, and rescheduling the regular meeting to the 9th and include committee of adjustment.
Okay, Sherry, are you willing to move that? Yes?
I have a
Or
question.
comments? Go ahead, yeah.
The special meeting of June the 3rd, if that was the date, didn't that include getting a report from the consultants on the business and planning?
Correct. So on June 2nd, we had scheduled a special meeting at 3:30.
Right.
So we're proposing that we would cancel that meeting for now because we're a little bit behind with that project.
Okay. Can we hear back at our next meeting when the meeting to replace that will be?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. I don't mind moving the recommendation.
Okay, so Sherry has moved it, and Jerry, do you want to second and then make a comment?
I'll second it and make a comment. I guess through you to Angie, how are they running behind on that project when they could have been working the whole time through video and phone?
So in terms of you'll remember that the public input session, can you hear me, Jerry? Yeah, during the public input was canceled right at the time that COVID started. So we had to actually just reschedule that, and that was just done the last couple of weeks. So that's the piece that was delayed.
Okay, Donna?
Yes. I just wasn't sure what Angie said. I thought she said on one of our June meetings, there was going to be a meeting before that. Did you say that, Angie? Or are they just regular 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock meetings?
So the new meeting times that we've scheduled for June the 9th and June the 23rd, they're regular times. So the June the 9th would be 5 p.m. Oh, sorry, well, just a sec.
We're just going to check on the times just because of the committee of adjustment. Angie's just going to review the procedural bylaw.
Okay, we'll take care of that because I think you're going to have to, on that first meeting, probably push back the start time of the regular meeting from 5 to 6 and then schedule the committee of adjustment at 5.
Yeah, so what we could do on both the 9th and the 23rd, we would have committee of adjustment at 5 and council would start at 6.
That's right. Perfect. Okay. We have a mover and a seconder. Everybody's comfortable with that? All those in favor? That's carried. Okay. Any other new or unfinished business? Donna?
Through you to yourself and Sherry, I had a request today, and it's regarding the causeway and that lovely shelf that we have beside our Jersey barriers. People are afraid that it's going to be a perfect place for fishermen to stand and potentially knock down part of that wall. I was wondering if County Council were considering blocking that off so they couldn't get onto that. I know you can't totally block it off, but block it off a little better than it is.
I'll have a chat with the director of infrastructure.
Okay. Because they could potentially knock off some of those rocks. I'm not sure how sturdy they are, but I know it looks really good now and I wouldn't want them to have to do more work.
Yeah, I'll talk to him and I'll circle back.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything? Not seeing anything, we will go to bylaw 2020-29, which is the agreement of purchase and sale for Bishop Street. Anybody want to move it? Anita has moved it and Donna has seconded it. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried. And we need a confirming bylaw. Sherry, Donna, all those in favor? Carried. And Jerry. There we go. Jerry moved adjournment. Anita seconded. All those in favor? Colleagues, we are adjourned. Thank you very much. This worked very well. Thank you, staff. Without a hitch. So that's great. Appreciate it. And we will see you virtually in the not too distant future. And hopefully we will all be together again as soon as possible. Thank you. Good night.